I do wish I could get it so that would just squish to 2 lines, but whatever. Who cares? I don't care. I might care a little bit, but I don't care enough to change it. Okay, I've got a little less than a minute left. Let me leave that how it is. I know that has nothing to do with the Testaments, but I was supposed to publish my solo leveling episode on Friday, and I just got to it today and just left it there, forgot about it. So anyway, let's get ready for this instead. I'm gonna leave that how it is. And the timer is done. Hello everyone, this is Venus Brown. I am back with more live reading of the Testaments. We are now at the part of the book where Daisy first has this situation with the dentist. It is different than what we see in the TV series, but not really a lot different. The reality of what's happening is still fairly well the same. The specifics are a bit different, but the situation is not much different. And we are also at this part where they have a handmaid, and the handmaid is getting ready to have a baby. Whereas on the TV show, that is not happening. I don't know if it will eventually, but it's not happening right now. There are certainly timeline discrepancies in the TV show and the book. But they also the showrunners also specifically said that there would be timeline discrepancies, that there would be some things that are out of order. And they specifically said that they want to stretch this out more than one season. So they will be doing much like they did with The Handmaid's Tale and taking pieces from the book and putting them sporadically throughout the series. So I would not guarantee that anything would be specifically according to the timeline in the book. But still, to me, a lot of the things are still kind of remaining on the path of the book. The stories are still there. They just may be spread around a little bit differently. And some of the names are changed, stuff like that. Some of the things are a little bit different. Some of the events are a little bit different. Hopefully they won't alter that too much to completely remove certain storylines. I really do hope they keep the storylines in there, even if they do change them around a bit. Change the timeline, change who's involved or whatever. There's certain things that I definitely want them to keep it pretty well along with the book. But there's still plenty of stuff that I'm okay with them juggling it around a little bit. Anyway, we are starting on Chapter 17 of this Part 6 called 6 for Dead. Now, we don't find out what 6 for Dead is until the end of Part 6. It's like the very last page. That's when we find out. And just a little spoiler, it is a kid's game. Like one of those child songs that you sing, kind of involving your kid friends, but also maybe making fun of them a little bit. So just think about that, and think about the kid songs that we have growing up, both in the past when I was growing up, when my parents were growing up, and currently in today's standards. Some of those child songs that maybe are a little bit more disturbing. Like if you really think about the words, if you really think about what they mean, London Bridge is falling down is actually not not a nice song. Like it is about something bad. Um, Ring Around the Rosies, also like a very tragic period in history. So just think about that. It's that kind of thing, but it is not one of our childhood songs that we would know of because this is specific to Gilead. Anyway, let's go ahead and start with chapter 17. Finally, our handmaid managed to get pregnant. I knew this before I was told because instead of treating her as if she were a stray dog, they were putting up without they were putting up without a pity. What? I didn't even realize the first time I read this how it sounds, but that sounds weird. Because instead of treating her as if she were a stray dog, they were putting up with, I think it was supposed to say out of, putting up with her, and instead it says out. Or no, they missed the word her. They were putting up with her out of pity. So when I first read it, I must have just read right through, just assuming in my head that the her was there. Putting up with her out of pity. The Marthas began fussing over her and giving her bigger meals and placing flowers in little vases in her breakfast trays. Because of my obsession with her, the handmaid, I kept track of details like that as much as I could. I would listen to the Marthas talking excitedly in the kitchen when they thought I wasn't there. Though I couldn't always hear what they said, when I was with them, Zillah smiled to herself a lot, and Vera lowered her harsh voice as if she was in church. Even Rosa had a smug expression, as if she'd eaten a particularly delicious orange, but was not telling anyone about it. As for Paula, my stepmother, she was glowing. She was nicer to me on those occasions, when we were together in the same room, which were not frequent if I could help it. I snatched breakfast in the kitchen before being driven to school, and I left the dinner table as quickly as I could, pleading homework, some piece of petite point or knitting or sewing, a drawing I had to finish, a watercolor I needed to paint. Paula never objected. She didn't want to see more of me than I wanted to see of her. Of Kyle's pregnant, isn't she? I asked Zillah one morning. I tried to be casual about it, in case I was wrong. Zillah was caught off guard. How did you know? She asked. I'm not blind, I said in a superior voice that must have been irritating. I was at that age. We aren't supposed to say anything about it, said Zillah, until after the 3rd month. The first 3 months are the danger time. And we still believe that today. Like there's accurate reason to believe that the first 3 months you are a lot more likely to have a miscarriage. You're a lot more likely to find things wrong, stuff like that. After the first 3 months, it's a little more safe and a little more likely that you'll continue on with your pregnancy. Why? I said. I didn't really know much after all, despite Aunt Vidala's runny-nosed slideshow about fetuses. Because if it's an unbaby, that's when it might get born too early, said Zillah, and it would die. I knew about unbabies. They were not taught, but they were whispered about. There were said to be a lot of them. Becca's handmaid had given birth to a baby girl, but it didn't have a brain. Poor Becca had been very upset because she'd wanted a sister. We're praying for it. For her, Zillah had said then. I'd noticed the it. And if you remember, if you've read The Handmaid's Tale or listened to my reading of The Handmaid's Tale, there's this whole section where the handmaid June or Alfred talks about how when they tried to escape Gilead, Luke had called their cat it when he was talking about trying to take care of it. He said he would take care of it, and she specifically said that that's how they must do it. They kind of dehumanize these people or these creatures. They make them into an object, and by saying it I guess feels less, less like your pet, like you're taking care of this pet, but taking care of the pet was actually getting rid of it. Getting rid of it as in killing it. So she specifically talks about how you changed it from the name of the pet to the word it, so that you were kind of like making it into an object rather than this creature that you actually cared about. And in this case, same thing. Trying to alter that state of mind from this being a baby to the baby being considered an object, something less bothersome, less emotional. Take out the freaking empathy of the matter and make them into an object so that you don't have to think about how bad it is. We're praying for it. Paula must have dropped a hint among the other wives of Kyle being pregnant, though, because my status at school suddenly shot upwards again. Shunammite and Becca competed for my attention as before, and the other girls deferred to me as if I had an invisible aura. A coming baby shed luster on everyone connected with it. It was as if a golden haze had enveloped our house, and the haze got brighter and more golden as time passed. When the 3-month mark was reached, there was an unofficial party in the kitchen, and Zilla made cake. As for of Kyle, her expression was not so much joyful as relieved. From what I could glimpse of her face. In the midst of the repressed jubilation, I myself was a dark cloud. This unknown baby inside of Kyle was taking up all the love. There seemed to be none left anywhere for me. I was all alone, and I was jealous. That baby would have a mother, and I would never have one. Even the Marthas were turning away from me, towards the light shining out of Kyle's belly. I am ashamed to admit it. Jealous of a baby? But that was the truth. It was at this time that an event took place that I should pass over because it's better forgotten, but it had a bearing on the choice I was soon to make. Now that I am older and have seen more of the outside world, I can see that it might not seem that significant to some. But I was a young girl from Gilead, and I had not been exposed to these kinds of situations, so this event was not trivial to me. Instead, it was horrifying. It was also shameful. When a shameful thing is done to you, the shamefulness rubs off on you. You feel dirtied. So this is the first paragraph where they're getting ready to talk about the dentist issue. And I find it interesting that she says that, for other people on the outside, this might not seem significant. But to me, it was horrifying. It was shameful. But really, this is actually a feeling a thing that I think way too many girls in real life outside of Gilead could relate to. Too many of us have been through sexual assaults, through rapes, through incest, through harassment, through all kinds of stuff, through questionable shit happening to us, and through people on the outside trying to make us feel like it was shameful, like it was something for us to be ashamed of, something for us to hide. And I think because we do now know and understand and try to make it clear in society that these things are not something to be ashamed of, that it is awful that it happened, but that it is the fault of the person that did that to us, that they are the ones that controlled the situation and we did not, that we had no control over what happened, and that it is completely horrifying and it can completely uproot your life. It can completely uproot the things that you're going to do, the way you think, how you feel, how you behave, all of that in real life and in Gilead. But she says that after she's been out of Gilead more and has experienced more of the world, she thinks that it might not be significant to some, but I think actually those people outside of Gilead would understand, would definitely understand that this situation is horrifying, that it is terrifying, and that especially in a regime like Gilead, that it can be that you can be made to feel shameful and dirty and all of that. And like I said, even some of us out in regular society where this is understood as not being shameful and not being our fault, sometimes it still makes us feel dirty. I mean, when those things happen to you, a lot of times one of the first things that you want to do is just shower and fucking wash that shit off. Like, just wash and wash and wash and scrub, and you can't scrub it off. Like, that kind of thing. It's not just a trope, it's a real thing that people go through. I know, I have gone through this myself. So that's just my own personal experience with my own situation. But there's plenty of other girls that have gone through similar. Anyway, it was just something that I wanted to address that I found interesting. That she thought that after being out in the outside world, that those on the outside of Gilead might not understand where... we'll listen to more about how I think she felt that others in Gilead might deal with something like that or feel about something like that, because that's a different take. The prelude was minor. I needed to go to the dentist for my yearly checkup. The dentist was Becca's father, and his name was Dr. Grove. He was the best dentist, said Vera. All the top commanders and their families went to him. His office was in the Blessings of Health building, which was for doctors and dentists. It had a picture of a smiling heart and a smiling tooth on the outside. One of the Marthas always used to go with me to the doctor or the dentist and sit in the waiting room, as it was more proper that way. Tabitha used to say, without explaining why, but Paula said the guardian could just drive me there, since there was too much work to be done in the house, considering the changes that had to be prepared for, by which she meant the baby. And it would be a waste of time to send a Martha. I didn't mind. In fact, going by myself made me feel very grown up. I sat up straight in the back seat of the car behind our guardian, and then I went into the building and pressed the elevator button that had 3 teeth on it, and found the right floor and the right door, and sat in the waiting room looking at the pictures of transparent teeth on the wall. When it was my turn, I went into the inner room, as the assistant, Mr. William, asked me to do, and I sat down on the dentist chair. Dr. Grove came in, and Mr. William brought my chart, and then went out and closed the door. And Dr. Grove looked at my chart, asked if I had any problems with my teeth, and I said no. He poked around in my mouth with his picks and probes and his little mirror, as usual. As usual, I saw his eyes up close, magnified by his glasses, blue and bloodshot, with elephant knee eyelids, and tried not to breathe in when he was breathing out, because his breath smelled, as usual, of onions. He was a middle-aged man with no distinguishing features. He snapped off his white, stretchy sanitary gloves and washed his hands at the sink, which was behind my back. He said, "Perfect teeth, perfect." Then he said, "You're getting to be a big girl, Agnes." Then he put his hand on my small but growing breast. It was summer, so I was wearing the summer school uniform, which was pink and made of light cotton. Now, remember in the book, they switched the colors of the uniforms based on the seasons of the year, so not based on your development in, your young adult development. No, instead it was based on whether it was spring, summer, winter, or fall. So, summer, she was wearing the pink. All right, which the pink was made of light cotton. I froze in shock. So it was all true then, about men and their rampaging, fiery urges, and merely by sitting in the dentist's chair, I was the cause? I was horribly embarrassed. What was I supposed to say? I didn't know, so I simply pretended it wasn't happening. And way too many of us, I think, respond that way. Freeze up, pretend like it wasn't happening. In Handmaid's Tale, and June says that she steals herself. She intentionally tries to disassociate herself. And I think a lot of us have gone through that same thing. Dr. Grove was standing behind me, so it was his left hand on my left breast. I couldn't see the rest of him, only his hand, which was large and had reddish hairs on the back. It was warm. It sat there on my breast like a large, hot crab. I didn't know what to do. Should I take hold of his hand and move it off my breast? Would that cause even more burning lust to break forth? Should I try to get away? Then the hand squeezed my breast. The fingers found my nipple and pinched. It was like having a thumbtack stuck into me. I moved the upper part of my body forward. I needed to get out of the dentist chair as fast as I could. But the hand was locking me in. Suddenly it lifted, and then some of the rest of Dr. Grove moved into sight. "About time you saw one of these," he said, in the normal voice in which he said everything. "You'll have one of them inside you soon enough." He took hold of my right hand, and he positioned it on this part of himself. I don't think I need to tell you what happened next. He had a towel handy. He wiped himself off and tucked his appendage back into his trousers. "There," he said. "Good girl. I didn't hurt you." He gave me a fatherly pat on the shoulder. "Don't forget to brush twice a day and floss afterwards. Mr. Williams will give you a new toothbrush." I walked out of the room feeling sick to my stomach. Mr. William was in the waiting room, his unobtrusive 30-year-old face impassive. He held out a bowl with new pink and blue toothbrushes in it. I knew enough to take a pink one. "Thank you," I said. "You're welcome," said Mr. Williams. Any cavities? No, I said, not this time. Good, said Mr. William. Keep away from the sweet things, and maybe you'll never have any decay. Are you all right? Yes, I said. Where was the door? You look pale. Some people have a fear of dentists. Was that a smirk? Did he know what just happened? I'm not pale, I said stupidly. How could I tell I wasn't pale? I found the door handle and I blundered out, reached the elevator, pressed the button down. Was this now going to happen every time I went to the dentist? I couldn't say I didn't want to go back to Dr. Grove without saying why. And if I said why, I knew I would be in trouble. The aunts at school taught us that you should tell someone in authority, meaning them, if any man touched you inappropriately. But we knew not to be so dumb as to make a fuss, especially if it was a well-respected man like Dr. Grove. Also, what would it do to Becca? If I say that about her father, she would be humiliated. She would be devastated. It would be a terrible betrayal. Some girls had reported such things. One had claimed their guardian had run his hands over her legs. Another had said that an econo trash collector had unzipped his trousers in front of her. The first girl had the backs of her legs whipped for lying. The second had been told that nice girls did not notice the minor antics of men. They simply looked the other way. But I could not have looked the other way. There had been no other way to look. I don't want any dinner, I said to Zilla in the kitchen. She gave me a sharp glance. Did your dentist appointment go all right, dear? She said. Any cavities? No, I said. I tried a wan smile. I have perfect teeth. Are you ill? Maybe I'm catching a cold, I said. I just need to lie down. Zilla made me a hot drink with lemon and honey in it and brought it up to my room on a tray. I should have gone with you, she said. But he's the best dentist, everyone agrees. She knew, or she suspected. She was warning me not to say anything. That was the kind of coded language they used. Or I should say, that we all used. Did Paula know too? Did she foresee that such a thing would happen to me at Dr. Grove's? Is that why she sent me by myself? It must have been so, I decided. She'd done it on purpose, so I would have my breast pinched and that polluting item thrust in front of me. She'd wanted me to be defiled. That was a word from the Bible. Defiled. She was probably having a malicious laugh about it, about the nasty joke she'd played on me. For I could see that in her eyes. It would be viewed as a joke. After that, I stopped praying for forgiveness about the hatred that I felt towards her. I was right to hate her. I was prepared to think the very worst of her, and I did. Okay. All right, so we are on chapter 18. Let's go to live scene. Okay, so as I said, it is same sort of situation, but it is different than what is presented on the TV show. She has the situation with her breasts happen, but also says that he pinches her nipple and he fucking sticks his thing out and makes her grab it. Which that particular thing has never happened to me, but I've heard plenty of girls whose stories were similar. about them fucking having the girl grab it, which would be like the first or second time, and just like continuing on making things worse and more extreme from there. Part of the grooming that some men do of children, but fucking horrible. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh my God. Okay, I know. I'm swearing like Daisy, but whatever. It's what I do anyway. I swear. If you come on my channel and don't expect me to be swearing, yeah, I definitely swear. Anyway, let's go ahead and start with chapter 18. Okay. The months passed. My life of tiptoeing and eavesdropping continued. I worked hard at seeing without being seen and hearing without being heard. I discovered the cracks between door frames and nearly closed doors, the listening posts in hallways and on stairs, the thin places in the walls. Most of what I heard came in fragments and even silences, but I was becoming good at fitting these fragments together and filling in the unsaid parts of sentences. So she's like already getting practice in kind of spying out things, figuring things out, listening, observing, paying attention, so that she can pick up more and more of what is going on around her, what is being talked about, the gossip going around, all of that, which I think is very important. Much like in The Handmaid's Tale, when June was gradually learning more and more to actually like pay attention, listen in, observe, all of that. Eavesdrop without being noticed, that kind of thing. Of Kyle, our handmaid got bigger and bigger, or her stomach did, and the bigger she got, the more ecstatic our household became. I mean, the women became ecstatic. As for Commander Kyle, it was hard to tell what he felt. He'd always had a wooden face, and anyway, men were not supposed to display emotions in such ways as crying or even laughing out loud, though a certain amount of laughing did go on behind closed doors. Dining room doors, when he'd have his groups of commanders over for dinner, with wine and one of the party desserts involving whipped cream, when obtainable, that Zilla made so well. But I suppose even he was at least moderately thrilled about the ballooning of Kyle. Sometimes I wondered what my own father might have felt about me. I had some notions about my mother. She'd run away with me. She'd been turned into a handmaid by aunts. But none at all about my father. I must have had one. Everyone did. You'd think I'd have filled up the blank with idealized pictures of him, but I didn't. The blank remained blank. Of Kyle was now quite a celebrity. Wives would send their handmaids over with some excuse, borrowing an egg, returning a bowl, but really to ask how she was doing. They would be allowed inside the house, then she would be called down so they could put their hands on her round belly and feel the baby kicking. It was amazing to see the expressions on their faces. While they were performing this ritual, wonder, as if they were witnessing a miracle. Hope, because if Kyle could do it, so could they. Envy, because they weren't doing it yet. Longing, because they really wanted to do it. Despair, because it might never happen for them. I did not yet know what might become of a handmaid who, despite having been judged viable, came up barren through all her allotted postings. But I already guessed it would not be good. Paula threw numerous tea parties for the other wives. They would congratulate her and admire her and envy her. And she would smile graciously and accept their congratulations modestly and say all blessings came from above. And then she would order of Kyle to appear in the living room so the wives could see for themselves and exclaim over her and make a fuss. They might even call of Kyle dear, which they never did for any ordinary handmaid, one with a flat stomach. Then they would ask Paula what she was going to name her baby. Her baby, not of Kyle's baby. I wondered what of Kyle thought about that. But none of them were interested in what was going on in her head. They were only interested in her belly. They would be patting her stomach and sometimes even listening to it, whereas I would be standing behind the open living room door, looking at her through the crack so I could watch her face. I saw her trying to keep that face as still as marble, but she didn't always succeed. Her face was rounder then. It had been when her face was rounder than it had been when she first arrived. It was almost swollen. And it seemed to me that this was because of all the tears. She was not allowing herself to cry. Did she cry them in secret? Although I would lurk outside her closed door with my ear to it, I never heard her. At these moments of lurking, I would become angry. I had a mother once. I'd been snatched away from that mother and given to Tabitha, just as this baby was going to be snatched away from of Kyle and given to Paula. It was the way things were done. It was how things were. It was how they had to be for the good of the future of Gilead. The few must make sacrifices for the sake of the many. The aunts were agreed on that. They taught it. But still, I knew this part of it wasn't right. But I couldn't condemn Tabitha, even though she'd accepted a stolen child. She didn't make the world the way it was. And she had been my mother, and I had loved her, and she had loved me. I still loved her, and perhaps she still loved me. Who could tell? Perhaps her silvery spirit was with me, hovering over me, keeping watch. I liked to think so. I needed to think so. At last, the birthday came. I was home from school because I'd finally gotten my first period and was having bad cramps. Zilla had made a hot water bottle for me and had rubbed on some pain-killing salve and had made me a cup of analgesic tea. And I was huddled in my bed feeling sorry for myself when I heard the birthmobile siren coming along our street. I hauled myself out of bed and went to the window. Yes, the red van was inside our gates now, and the handmaids were climbing down out of it, a dozen of them or more. I couldn't see their faces, but just from the way they moved, faster than they usually did, I could tell they were excited. Then the cars of the wives began to arrive, and they too hurried into our house in their identical blue cloaks. 2 aunts' cars also drove up, and the aunts got out. They weren't ones I recognized. Both were older, and one was carrying a black bag with the red wings and the knotted snake and the moon on it. That meant it was a medical services first responder bag. Female division. A number of the aunts were trained in first response and midwifery, though they could not be real doctors. But, excuse me, goodness. I was not supposed to witness a birth. Girls and marriageable young women, such as I'd just become by having my period, were not allowed to see or know what went on, because such sights and sounds were not suitable for us and might be harmful to us, might disgust us or frighten us. That thick red knowledge was for married women and handmaids, and for aunts, of course, so they could teach it to the midwife aunts in training. But naturally, I repressed my own cramping pain, put on my dressing gown and slippers, and crept halfway up the stairs that led to the 3rd floor, where I would be out of sight. The wives were downstairs having a tea party in the living room and waiting for the important moment. I did not know what moment exactly, but I could hear them laughing and chattering. They were drinking champagne along with their tea, as I knew from the bottles and empty glasses I saw in the kitchen later. The handmaids and the designated aunts were with of Kyle. She wasn't in her own room. That room wouldn't have been big enough for everyone, but in the master bedroom on the 2nd floor, I could hear a groaning sound that was like an animal, and the handmaids chanting, "Push, push, push. Breathe, breathe, breathe." And at intervals, an anguished voice I didn't recognize, but it must have been of Kyle's, saying, "Oh God, oh God," deep and dark as if it was coming out of a well. It was terrifying. Sitting on the stairs, hugging myself, I began to shiver. What was happening? What torturing? What inflicting? What was being done? These sounds went on for what seemed a long time. I heard footsteps hurrying along the hallway, the Marthas bringing whatever had been requested, carrying things away, from snooping in the laundry later in the evening. I saw that some of the things were bloody sheets and towels. Then one of the aunts came out into the hall and started barking into her computalk. "Right now, as fast as you can! Her pressure's way down! She's losing too much blood!" There was a scream and another. One of the aunts called down the stairs to the wives, "Get in here now!" The aunts didn't usually yell like that. A crowd of footsteps hurrying up the stairs and a voice saying, "Oh, Paula!" And then there was another siren, a different kind. I checked the hallway. Nobody. And scuttled to my own room to peer out the window. A black car, the red wings and the snake, but a tall gold triangle. A real doctor. He almost leapt out of the car, slamming the door, and ran up the steps. I heard what he was saying. "Shit, shit, shit, shit of a God!" This in itself was electrifying. I had never heard a man say anything like that before. It was a boy. A healthy son for Paula and Commander Kyle. He was named Mark. But if Kyle died. I sat with the Marthas in the kitchen after the wives and the handmaids and everyone had gone away. The Marthas were eating the leftover party food. Sandwiches with the crusts off, cake, real coffee. They offered me some of the treats, but I said I wasn't hungry. They asked about my cramps. I would feel better tomorrow, they said, and after a while it wouldn't be so bad. And anyway, you got used to it. But that wasn't why I had no appetite. There would have to be a wet nurse, they said. It would be one of the handmaids who'd lost a baby. That or formula, though everyone knew formula wasn't as good. Still, it would keep life in that little mite. The poor girl, Zilla said. To go through all of that for nothing? At least the baby was saved, said Vera. It was one or the other, said Rosa. They had to cut her open. I'm going to bed now, I said. If Kyle hadn't yet been taken out of our house, she was in her own room, wrapped in a sheet, as I discovered when I went softly up the back stairs. I uncovered her face. It was flat white. She must have had no blood left in her. Her eyebrows were blonde, soft and fine, upcurved as if surprised. Her eyes were open, looking at me. Maybe that was the first time she'd ever seen me. I kissed her on the forehead. I won't ever forget you, I said to her. The others will, but I promise I won't. Melodramatic, I know. I was still a child, really. But as you can see, I have kept my word. I never have forgotten her. Her. Of Kyle, the nameless one. Buried under a little square stone that might as well have been blank. I found it in the Handmaid graveyard some years later. And when I had the power to do so, I searched for her in the Bloodline's genealogical archives, and I found her. I found her original name. Meaningless, I know, except for those who must have loved her and then been torn apart from her. But for me, it was like finding a handprint in a cave. It was a sign. It was a message. I was here. I existed. I was real. What was her name? Of course you will want to know. It was Crystal. It was Crystal. And that is how I remember her now. I remember her as Crystal. They had a small funeral for Crystal. I was allowed to come to it. Having had my first period, I was now officially a woman. The handmaids who'd been present at the birth were allowed to come too. And our entire household went as well. Even Commander Kyle was there as a token of respect. We sang 2 hymns. Uplift the lowly and blessed be the fruit. And the legendary Aunt Lydia gave a speech. I looked at her with wonder, as if she was her own picture come to life. She existed after all. She looked older than her picture, though, and not quite as scary. She said that our sister in service, Handmaid of Kyle, had made the ultimate sacrifice, and had died with noble womanly honor, and had redeemed herself from her previous life of sin. And she was a shining example to the other handmaids. Aunt Lydia's voice trembled a little as she was saying this. Paula and Commander Kyle looked solemn and devout, nodding from time to time, and some of the handmaids cried. I didn't cry. I'd already done my crying. The truth was that they'd cut Crystal open to get the baby out, and they'd killed her by doing that. It wasn't something she chose. She hadn't volunteered to die with noble womanly honor or be a shining example, but nobody mentioned that. Okay. So, that was episode 8, or chapter 18, episode 18. That was chapter 18. A lot of hard stuff. Goodness. Oh my God. So yeah, I've been going through some of the fan pages, and a lot of people were making comments about there being no handmaids on the Testaments, and some people were commenting on the book, and a lot of them were commenting that they didn't remember any handmaids in the book, or like it was barely touched on. But as you can hear, like this was not just a barely touched on thing. It was addressed, and it was an important event, and a real it had a real effect on Agnes. So yeah, that people just didn't recall reading about it in the book, I found odd. Like I always thought about it after I read the book. Like this was something that I definitely thought about. And I thought it was like a very like character building moment for Agnes. This whole thing with her having this handmaid there. It may not have been like a big chunk of the book, but it was several chapters. And it was an important part of her life. So, and it doesn't end there because she also has the handmaid that is going to be nursing the baby later on. So, and that is coming in the next chapter. So let me go ahead and get started with chapter 19. And chapter 19 is fairly short, just so you know, but this will also finish off this part. And like I said, at the end of is it the end? It's actually on this page that we're going to find out why it's called Six for Dead. At school, my position was now worse than it had ever been. I had become a taboo object. Our handmaid had died, which was believed among the girls to be a sign of bad fate. They were a superstitious group. At the Vidala school, there were two religions. The official one, taught by the aunts, about God and the special sphere of women, and the unofficial one, which was passed from girl to girl by means of games and songs. The younger girls had a number of counting rhymes, such as knit 1, purl 2, here's a husband just for you. Knit 2, purl 1, he got killed, here's another one. For the small girls, husbands were not real people. They were furniture and therefore replaceable, as in my childhood dollhouse. The most popular singing game among the younger girls was called hanging. It went like this. Who's that hanging on the wall? Fee-fi, fiddle-lo. It's a handmaid, what's she called? Fee-fi, fiddle-lo. She was. Here we would put in the name of one of us. Now she's not. Fee-fi, fiddle-lo. She was Agnes. Now she's not. Fee-fi, fiddle-o. She had a baby in the pot. Here we would slap our little flat stomachs. Fee-fi, fiddle-o. The girls would file under the uplifted hands, and two other girls while everyone chanted. 1 for murder, 2 for kissing, 3 for a baby, 4 gone missing, 5 for alive, and 6 for dead, and 7 we caught you, red, red, red. The 7th girl would be caught by the two counters and paraded around in a circle before being given a slap on the head. Now she was dead, and was allowed to choose the next two executioners. I realize this sounds both sinister and frivolous, but children will make games out of whatever is available to them. The aunts probably thought this game contained a beneficial amount of warning and threat. Why was it 1 for murder, though? Why did murder have to come before kissing? Why not after? Which would seem more natural. I have often thought about that since, but I have never found any answer. We were allowed other games inside school hours. We played snakes and ladders. If you landed on a prayer, you went up a ladder on the tree of life. But if you landed on a sin, you went down a satanic snake. We were given coloring books, and we colored in the signs of the shops, all flesh, loaves and fishes, as a way of learning them. We colored the clothing of people too. Blue for the wives, stripes for the econo wives, red for the handmaids. Becca once got in trouble with Aunt Vidala for coloring a handmaid purple. Among the older girls, the superstitions were whispered rather than sang, and they were not games. They were taken seriously. One of them went like this. If your handmaid dies in your bed, then her blood is on your head. If your handmaid's baby dies, then your life is tears and sighs. If your handmaid dies in birth, the curse will follow you over the earth. If Kyle had died during a birth, so I was viewed by the other girls as accursed. But also, since little baby Mark was alive and well, and my brother, I was also viewed as unusually blessed. The other girls did not taunt me openly, but they avoided me. Huldah would squint up at the ceiling when she saw me coming. Becca would turn away, though she would slip me portions of her lunch when no one was looking. Shunammite fell away from me, whether out of fear because of the death or envy because of the birth, or a combination of both. At home, all attention was on the baby who demanded it. He had a loud voice, and although Paula enjoyed the prestige of having a baby, and a male one at that, she was not the motherly type at heart. Little Mark would be produced and exhibited for her friends, but a short time of that went a long way with Paula, and he would soon be handed over to the wet nurse, a plump, lugubrious handmaid who had recently been of Tucker, but was now, of course, of Kyle. When he wasn't eating or sleeping, or being shown off, Mark passed his time in the kitchen, where he was a great favorite among the Marthas. They loved to give him his bath and exclaim over his tiny fingers, his tiny toes, his tiny dimples, and his tiny male organ, out of which he could project a truly astonishing fountain of pee. What a strong little man. I was expected to join in the worship, and when I didn't show enough zeal, I was told to stop sulking, because soon enough I would have a baby of my own, and then I would be happy. I doubted that very much. Not the baby so much as the happiness. I spent as much time in my room as possible, avoiding the cheerfulness in the kitchen and brooding on the unfairness of the universe. All right, so that is the end of part 6. End of part 6. And I believe the next chapter is going to go further into the situation with the ants before they became ants. Let me double check the title. Stadium. Yes, and I thought that the last episode of the Testaments, episode 5, was going to have this part with the stadium in it, but it did not. It was just this ball that they had to present the young marriageable girls to the male commanders. And they started with the younger, less powerful commanders, and then they advanced to the older, more grotesque, high-powered commanders. But anyway, I am hearing now, though, I think more confirmation that it is the next episode, episode 6, where we are supposed to get some of this stadium scenario. So yeah, stadium will be coming for us on Tuesday. There is only one chapter. So, yeah, so I'll probably, let's see, what's the next one? Carnarvon. How do you pronounce that? Carnarvon. But there's 3 chapters to that, so we'll get started on that. So we'll do part 7 Stadium, part 8 we'll start on with at least chapter 21. It depends on how long the chapters are. I'll figure that out later. So either 2 chapters or 3, which is what I always do, either 2 or 3 chapters, but I'm more likely to do 3 chapters if one of the chapters is small. I'm more likely to do 2 chapters if both chapters are fairly decent length. Anyway, that is all I've got for you. I am going to go over my my schedule. Okay, so we have the Testaments live read, which is going to be still every Sunday and Tuesday. Sunday around noon, usually. Every once in a while I'll do it later than that. It depends. It depends on, like, if I've gotten up and gotten a decent amount of things done, then I will do it around noon. If I take a little bit longer getting up and taking care of stuff around the house and stuff like that, then I'll start it around 1 or 2. On Tuesdays, I do it later because my kid has class in the morning, so that usually I start around 1:30 or 2. I think there might have been one time I started at 3, but usually it's around 2 p.m. Okay, Deadlock Season 2 Afterwatch is today. It's going to be around 6 p.m., but this is the season finale. So after this, Deadlock will be done, and that will come off my schedule. So season finale of Deadlock Season 2 today around 6 p.m. And Solo Leveling, I had forgotten to post that. It should be posted now, but yeah, usually I post them on Friday evenings. So Solo Leveling Friday evenings. And Testament reactions to the TV series are on Tuesdays. And I am trying to make sure that I post them on Tuesday mornings. So every Tuesday. And yeah, I'm behind everybody else. That is the way I am. I do my TV shows once a week. I don't care if the showrunners drop every episode at once. I don't care if they drop the first 3 episodes at once. I do 1 episode a week because it takes me almost the entire week of working on these various episodes to get them done and ready to be published. So yeah, once a week you'll get a reaction because it takes me that long to get them done. I was also thinking about the coming schedule after some of these shows are done, after The Testaments is done, after Deadlock is done. There is supposed to be House of the Dragon Season 3 coming in June, I think. I think it's June. So I will be doing that next. I don't think I have a second show to go with it like I did with Deadlock. But in July, they're releasing the movie Heartstopper, which would have been season 3 or 4, I can't remember. But they, instead of doing a TV season, they decided to do one movie. So in July there is going to be a movie. I will be in Ireland though at the time. So I've been thinking about this. Should I wait until I get back from Ireland? I really don't want to. I'm thinking what I'm going to try to do, because it should be on Netflix, is to go ahead and watch the movie. I am thinking about trying to do it as like a live stream. And I won't actually have the movie playing, but what I'll do is have like a little bit of the beginning so you can see when I start the movie. So that way, if you want to follow along, you can turn the movie on yourself if you have access to it. Like I said, it'll be on Netflix. Start it off. I'll do a countdown, then start the show. I'll let you know like where I'm starting it exactly. Usually I try to start it at the very beginning. If they do like an advertisement or like a refresher of what's happened in the past, usually it'll be before that. If they just do like a preview, it'll be before that. If they have advertisements, I will try to make sure that I play past the advertisements before I start the show. So anyway, I'll start the show. I'll play a little bit of it on there so that you can see where it is or whatever. And then I will turn the show off, because it will get copyright struck if I keep the show going on a live stream. So just a little bit. And I think what I will do is I'll have separate scenes like I do that here. Like right now I'm on my stream ending soon scene. Now I'll put it on my live scene. So what I'm thinking I will do is make it so that I can switch from one scene to another and both scenes be able to capture the movie, so that I can have one like this where I'm just on live scene. It's just me and you don't see the TV show going on and you don't hear the TV show going on. But then I can move it to another scene where so like I could go to my intermission scene and it would actually play the show. So maybe if I like see a scene that I think looks very interesting, I might turn on the intermission screen and just have it already set up to be capturing that particular TV series. That's what I'm thinking I'll do, but it has to be most of the time with none of the TV show footage playing and none of the sound from the TV show going, because they will cut it off. I remember back when I first started this and I tried to do House of the Dragon, I think. The very first episode of House of the Dragon, I tried to live stream and I tried to leave as much out as I could, but they could hear the sound of the show in the background and they just shut it down. So yeah, I'll have to keep it to a minimum, but that's what I'm thinking I will do. That is if I have all my tech stuff with me that I need in order to do that. I would at least need my webcam. I would need my laptop, that kind of thing. My laptop is not able to handle the stuff that my computer does, but I can usually go ahead and do a live stream. It just might not be all that. And it may have a hard time if I have too much stuff going on it at the same time. But I think it'll be all right. Anyway, that is all I've got for you for right now. I will see you when I see you.